Welcome to Make a Path Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today we're going to talk about Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. We got a couple articles. I'm going to try to keep them combined into one video because two of them have to do with his departure. The third kind of has to do with his departure, but that is about how they were going to have him leave the show in season 8, which is... I don't even know what to say to that. Rick Grimes leaving during All Out War? It's almost like a Twilight Zone article. It doesn't make any sense. They did say in the article that this was conversation between Andrew Lincoln and Scott Gimple as early as season 4, which then you could kind of see, okay, they didn't really see how it was coming together. You could kind of see they were aiming for a future season, and it did come up on him quick. And even Andrew Lincoln, you'll see in the article, talks about how he just wasn't ready. And after even seeing season 8, you can see now that is just insane. That's way too quick. That's even worse than leaving in the New Beginning. At least with the New Beginning, it's kind of like Rick has defeated some serious foes. You know, he got past the governor, got past the cannibals, he got past the wolves, he's got past zombies and horde of zombies and No Way Out, and then finally they're building a community, and then it was attacked by a tyrant, and he defeated that tyrant. Even though the New Beginning is still kind of an odd spot for him to exit the story, it's still a lot better than leaving during All Out War. That is nuts. Imagine Rick dying in All Out War and Negan living. I don't know what to say to that. So, kicking this off, Norman Reedus gave an interview where he talked about maybe too much. And I tell you what, something about this, I don't like it. Maybe it just sounds really different because we weren't there. And we're talking about Andrew Lincoln is filming his death scene. He's on his back. And I know I did a video recently about... man, that one person laying down on the ground, it kind of bugged me. I was like, that they wouldn't do that with Rick just laying there, right? And no, we found out that that was a savior. If you watched my follow-up video, I like the follow-up video. It has to do with Daryl and the Henry kid, and I like the predictions coming out of it. I think it's spot on in some areas. But knowing that, okay, that wasn't him. That was a savior being eaten in the trailer by a walker. But he's definitely dying, just laying there on his back, and they're doing something. So obviously his death is going to be some type of build-up to where he gets injured, some type of confrontation, he gets injured, and then he saves the community. We see him on a horse leading a massive herd of walkers away from the construction site and the tent site where they have the community located. I'm guessing near the construction site. So he does save them and get them away, and then something happens where he's laying on his back dying. There's a scene in the trailers where Walker comes up to him. Is it that scene? Is it a different scene? And Norman Reedus goes on to say Andrew Lincoln's very last scene, he's laying there and he's supposed to giggle. So in the script, he's supposed to giggle. And this is what Reedus tells to comicbook.com. Laying down, giggling, they go on to say. I'm trying to find where Norman Reedus kept talking. All right, we'll just read it here. Maybe Rick is going to go out on a happy note. But for one thing, he's laying down. Maybe he's succumbing to a bite, they're guessing. I'm not sure, but I can't exactly imagine Rick's final scene after over 100 episodes ends with him having a quick nap. The giggle, too, seems like a giveaway. It sure sounds like a man who's been through it all and some fun and a lot of heartbreak along the way and is just enjoying his final moments. Who knows? Maybe he just heard a good joke. But Reedus wanted to make sure that what could have been a very emotional moment was turned into a side-splitting one, at least for Andrew Lincoln. The camera's up here, Norman is saying, and I'm under the camera tickling his feet so he can giggle. So it would be a good way to end it, he says. So when we sit down and watch the scene, they say in the article, try and forget that Daryl Dixon is off camera tickling his feet. I think that maybe this reveals a little way too much. This kind of feels like an interview that should come after, like the next day, you know? immediately when the episode ends, and you watched it, they released the behind the scenes footage and they talk about Norman tickled his feet to get him to tickle. So now we know his very final moment. Rick is definitely on his back on the ground or in a chair or something, and he's definitely dying. So he's either bitten or bleeding out. We've seen him covered in blood. We've seen him leaking blood. So this kind of just ruins some of it in a sense, because we know that his last moment. You guys give me your thoughts and opinions on that one. That seemed really odd that they would talk about. I think the article I thought was going to be crazy clickbait. It said The Walking Dead's Norman Reedus has spoken about Andrew Lincoln's final scene and may have revealed a little too much. Man, that might be pretty accurate. I think for some fans that might be a little too much. You guys let me know your thoughts and opinions on that. And then we'll move on to another article from, this is actor Seth Gilliam. He plays Father Gabriel. This said, The Walking Dead bids an emotional farewell to Andrew Lincoln. I'll leave the links to these articles below so you can read them all. But he goes on to say, I thought, wow, that is really cool, Gilliam said with a coy grin. I think it's going to be really trippy for the audience. Executive producer Greg Nicotero added that he and the show's new showrunner, Angela Kang, wanted to give Rick an appropriate finale. He wanted to write him out by giving Rick a send-off that paid tribute to his entire journey on the story and in a way that was worthy of his character. Notice, they said they wanted to write him out and not straight up killing him. They are kind of being a little iffy on that. So it is looking like possibly Rick dies similar to Jim in a way. In the final very moments. Not his entire death, but the final very moments, it dies with some type of giggle, looking up. He probably sees something. That's probably how they connect it. And we probably don't actually see him die. So there is, in a way, maybe, unless he is bitten, and that's how he dies. If it's a wound that he's bleeding out, man, there's always a way they're going to bring him. They could possibly bring him back. As for Lincoln, he described his final season as breathtaking, mixed with kick-ass scenes with horses. I've done a video on how it's likely going to connect to season 1, and I still feel that's valid. Because think about it, for a story to come full circle, he got shot, went in a coma, woke up. He was on the hunt for his family. His family he would eventually lose. And then he finds a horse after the gas runs out in the car. That was in the comic. I forget what it was on the show, but I think it's the same thing. Runs out of gas, finds a horse, and then he goes to the city. That's where he's overwhelmed with the zombies. And in the show's universe, he crawls under the tank. He was going to kill himself. That's where his life was going to end. And then he sees the hole that saved him in the bottom of the tank. If there's some way for them to call back to that moment, I don't know. I've always said they like doing callbacks and callbacks and stories coming full circle for characters. And it might be something as simple as him looking up and seeing, I don't know, man. Because think about it. When he was in that moment in season 1, he was about to kill himself. He was surrounded by zombies. And what did he do? He looked up. In this, it's real similar. I'm not trying to say he's going to look up and see something that's going to resemble like a tank hole opening. It just seems weird. But it also seems a little too coincidental. And it has to be done on purpose to a degree. If in the beginning, when his story was almost going to end before it began, he was on his back, surrounded, about to kill himself, and he looks up. And then here it's confirmed that his death, his very final moments, is him looking up. And he's got this little giggle. I don't know, man. There's too much of a connection there. Anyhow, he goes on to say, I'm very proud of the work we've done this season and where the story is going, said Lincoln. In the episode I Leave, it launches and makes the rest of the season even more incredible and so beautiful. One that you have never seen before. I know what he meant by that, but think about how funny that is. No shit, we've never seen it before, Lincoln. It's a new episode. But I know what he meant by that. That is funny, though, when you're giving an interview or you're talking live and raw and you say something that in your head you're connected to what you're thinking about. But then when you hear it out loud, it's like, oh, yeah, well, duh. You've never seen it before. It's a new episode. This article is Andrew Lincoln almost left The Walking Dead in Season 8. I'm going to read this from Entertainment Weekly. I had a conversation during Season 4. Now, this is Andrew Lincoln talking with executive producer Scott Gimple about this. We shared young families, and there was a lot of synchronicity between the two of us, that we were two heads of a show that seemed to be getting bigger and bigger. We spoke about it and said, there's got to be a shape. We need a shape to work out. If we get to season 5, then maybe we've got a couple more. There were all these ifs and buts and strategies, and I said 8 sounds like a good number. 8 seasons was certainly something. Last season was a shape that I had in my head, and it was certainly something that Scott was possibly thinking about as well. That was a completion of a certain chapter, which we could call Rick's Falling. So then what happened, they go on to ask. Season 8 came and it got more complicated. I realized that rather than have the funeral, I had to prepare for the funeral, and I had to make sure everybody was comfortable with the funeral arrangements. And I don't think I was ready for the funeral. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't think I'm ready to go yet. It was during the summer of 2017, while filming season 8, that Lincoln changed his mind at Comic-Con, where he would officially announce his departure 1 year later, of all places. It was at Comic-Con that year that I made the decision that I couldn't leave that year. I said to my wife, I feel overwhelmed. I don't think I'm ready. I can't do it. I've got Norman. I've got Denai. I've got Jeffrey. I've got Melissa McBride. I've got Greg Nicotero, all these beautiful friends of mine. I don't know if I can do it yet. I don't know if it's time. Lincoln laughs. So that happened. Now, that might be an off article. I don't think there's anything else. He says, wait, I have to come home. All right, we'll finish this, and then I'll go on to talk about that. Lincoln is ready to make his exit, and I have to do it, says the star. I have to come home. There was a certain sense that I've been without a home for this time, and I think it's right. And he's talking about going back to be with his family. Now, I think it is interesting, and this could just be this one article just makes it seem a little different, but it's very telling that when he does talk about the show, and this kind of does sting, when he does talk about the show, there's just simply no love for the story in this. And again, give him the benefit of the doubt of maybe his head was in focus on something else, you know what I mean? Something more important to him, the people, which is understandable. But if you look at what he didn't want to leave, I mean, ouch. There is no mention of the story, the character, the show, I mean, even the fans even. And I don't think that was a slight on the fans. I just think his focus was somewhere. But I do think it is telling that the story and the character of Rick Grimes wasn't in there. And that might even make more sense if his sole reason was, in fact, that he wanted to be with his family. And it had nothing to do with any type of beefs behind the scenes with AMC at all. Because if there was some sort of beefs and that connected with him wanting to be with his family, that makes some sort of sense. But then he's coming back to direct. It's kind of a little iffy. But in his goodbye here, he's straight talking about the people, man. He's, about leaving the people in this and a third. So I think maybe in a way, it's not that he's never been deeply connected with the character, but I think in a way, I think it faded a little bit with the character and the story and what they got going on. I think he's still got a whole ton of love for it, for the experience, for everything as a whole in the general. But I think that drive for that character, I think it might have faded to some degree. I feel like that makes a bit of sense. And there is some fans discussing him returning as a director. I just want to spit this out right here, right now. They said originally he was going to be in 6 episodes, and then later it was confirmed a little bit ago he's only in 5. Greg Nicotero directs his final episode, and it's only episode 5. And then he's coming back to shadow a director so he can direct season 10. But he's coming back now to shadow a director. So there is a chance, there's a small chance. It is 6 episodes total. And keep in mind, this is a small chance because they could have just said 6 early on and realized it's only 5. And that's simply it. But there's a chance that when he comes back to shadow a director, he's also going to be in a flashback at the end of this season, hence making 6 episodes. He dies within the first 5, and then he comes back later to shadow direct and secretly film some type of flashback with Michonne or some type of community, and that would actually make sense. They did it with Herschel in season 4. It was beautifully done. One of my favorite sleeping giants of a season. Season 4 gets so much static, but I think it's just masterfully crafted and beautiful and poetic. Some frustrating moments. but it's definitely got a lot of oomph and a lot of passion to it that I think some fans are a little too rough on it. For me, it works in a very, very unique and different, beautiful way. I can't watch season 4 back to back, but if I watch it once every other year or something, it just grows on me and becomes more and more powerful. But you guys, give me your thoughts and opinions. What do you think about everything we talked about here? The different articles will be down in the video description. I would love to hear every single thought and opinion you have in your head down in that comment box. I was going to make a joke there, but I'm not going to because it'd probably be dumb. All right, guys, I'm done talking. It's your turn.